It's a new day. It's a nice day, and so there's really no reason. It's about 2:30 right now, and I've got my strips of nylon cloth. Remember, we used this stuff here on those test samples, and it worked fine. So I've got strips made up and put on a roll. So I'm going to go ahead and mix up some silver tip now and start. Well, I've got a few feet, about 2 feet on that first cup. So let me go ahead and I guess I can let you watch over my shoulder here. This is the second cup. It's interesting. Starting to stick because I was just getting some fluff up in here. Which I think this time, because I'm going to wrap it, I'm going to get a lot more compression. And I'll go ahead and wet out the whole mast, and then I'll come back in and go after some dry spots. Like right there's one. So that way I don't oversaturate the cloth and squeeze too much out into the nylon fabric. Well, I've got it all wet out, and it just turned 3:30, so it took me about an hour to get it from one end to the other. So now I'm going to, you can see some, spots in here where it's a little dry. I'm going to go ahead and fill those in and let it, so I can get a consistent darker color like that, and then I'll start with the wrap. So, well, I've got enough epoxy on there, and some places it's kind of bubbling up, so it's time to put the nylon down. May have to chase some excess down to the end there. The epoxy's making it act differently. Well, it is wrapped. Would have been better if I could have found some nylon tape of some kind, like it's gone to a sewing supply store and found some tape. And then I wouldn't have had to stop and cut, and then it wouldn't have been as raggy. The first part I had taken and ran the edges over a flame so that it didn't have all the hairs, but I don't think it's going to stick underneath. If it does, well, there's sandpaper. So. And I've got my hook here, and I've already tensioned it a little bit, and I've been rotating to be certain that I have enough tension on it. It seems to be fine right there. So it's surprising. I got areas where there's a lot of squeeze out. Some areas is not as much. And then I probably gained an inch or more on the big end by having to slide the excess as it was wetting out. That's something I would do again, or well, I would change, not do again, I would change, is to only fix one end. Well, the 2-inch tape spiral needs to be taped down hard on both ends to keep it from unraveling. but on the sleeving I would tape it at one end, probably the small end, and or if you're using a straight pipe on one end, and then wet out, and then I don't know if I would go in stages or not. Maybe wet out really well and then wrap, and then wet out and wrap, and wet out and wrap, and then push your excess all to one end. So I mean, this has been an experience for me. There's other things I would not do again. The layup should have been, probably 5 or 6 wraps of the 2-inch tape, followed by the probably as hard as these things, my little tests were getting. Probably I could have got away with the 15 feet of the 10-ounce 2.5-inch sleeving. And that would have been probably a good enough layup to make a nice stiff strong mast. Right now we've got 3 wraps of 2-inch tape, a 15-ounce 3-inch epoxied in place already, and then 3 more wraps of 2-inch tape, and then the 2.5 10-ounce on top of that. So I'm going to keep an eye on this and come out and rotate it, so that my doesn't settle down. And I don't know how long I'll leave. I may leave this on more than a day. I may just take one end, the bottom end off, just to look to see if it's coming off. Okay, it did come off on the sample I had when I was using this on that sample. And it lifted okay. You can see where it's saturated with epoxy now, full of stuff. So we'll come back in a day or so. Going to continue on with this. I don't know if it's been a hit or a miss, but I got the mast. Let me tip down here. I got the mast off the mandrel just for a little bit so I can drill the holes for the 3/18s and for the track, and then I'll put it back on the mandrel and set it back up in here again for another week. But what I wanted to do was, I've got my food scale out. Level. Yeah. Looks like it's about 6 1/4 pounds. Just under 3 kilograms. So it didn't weigh that much. But when I get the fittings on it, it'll weigh a little bit more, and I still got to paint it. So I'm probably looking at maybe 7 pounds. And for those curious George, Jacks, Janes, and Jeffs, the aluminum mast you can see is about 6 1/4, 6 1/3 pounds. And I've got that on the, so it comes in pretty close to the aluminum, but that's got all the fittings on it too. So let me go ahead and drill some holes off camera, so if I screw up, which I've done some screw ups on this mast. So, well, I got the last of my pilot holes drilled. It was even sharp enough it went through the last little bit of stainless that I had. My other drills won't go through, so now I can go ahead and paint this, and then now I can put it back on the mandrel for another week. Well, I went ahead and trimmed the end down to where it was originally. It was too much epoxy and masking tape in there to separate it enough to get it to roll over. So if I wanted a little extra strength, I'll just wrap some cloth, wet out some cloth, and stick it on the inside. Same with this upper end. I went ahead and just run it back. I can wet this out and then shape it and figure out what kind of plug I can put in here. I might be able to find an aftermarket rubber plug or make something wood and jam in there, epoxy. And so. Now it will set for another week. I have it back in its cradles and supported in the middle, and I'll let it just set there. I'm in no hurry. I got a mast already.